Morning, Juice. Bob, I thought about you yesterday, my friend, and I'm not sure when you got the news about the passing of your good friend and former teammate, Nick Mangold, but passed away at the far too young age of 41. I know we talked about it a couple weeks ago, his need for a kidney, and I was shocked by this news. I'm not sure what you want to talk about or how you want to say it, but I want to give you the floor because I know you guys were very close.
Yeah. It was a really long day yesterday, and it's going to be a long and hard week. And just kind of how the news broke, and I had talked to Nick last week about doing some stuff and coming on the show and talking more about this and in pursuit of his kidney. And last week, Wednesday, and he was like, "Yeah, I've got dialysis today. Well, let's try to do it next week," and that was all going to be good. And there was nothing, to my knowledge, and to people that I've talked to who had spoken with him heading into the weekend, that there was anything urgent about his need for a kidney other than the general urgency that you would have. But Nick was on dialysis. He was in good spirits. It's a suboptimal situation for anybody that's been on dialysis and been a part of that. And I think people understand that and know that if you're going through it, but it wasn't something that wasn't manageable. And, he had gone down the line, after speaking with some people. I think they had some good prospects for potential donors. When he announced that he needed a kidney, there was a lot of people that stepped up and were going to be tested. I think he even had someone, in his family that they were working with that they thought, could have been an answer to. We're hopeful that was going to be the case here in the next, month or so, that they would know and be able to maybe do something about that. And watching my wife get a call and seeing the emotion on her face as we were walking out of church yesterday. And I was getting ready to go home, and we had a bunch of stuff on the schedule, and I had to get home and get packed to fly down here to Orlando to do the Touchdown Club and speak here. And my first inclination was I thought something had happened to one of our parents. And then she tells me that Nick had passed away. And I was like, "Nick who?" That wasn't even a thought in my mind. And there wasn't even a thought in my mind that was a possibility. And I guess it goes to think that you wish you just had more time, and you thought you had more time, and understanding that the heartbreak that his wife and kids are going to be going through, and everything that they're going to be experiencing over the next coming week, and then leading into months and years of them growing up without their father, is it's a sobering prospect. And talking with some of my teammates yesterday, and trying to figure out how we're going to, what the funeral arrangements are going to be and what that's going to look like, and not even understanding how that's getting planned with all of this. And I can't even imagine trying to go through that with what that looks like. But I watched Grown Ups with my kids on Thursday night, and Caleb, my youngest son, loves Adam Sandler and Farley and that early 90s SNL crew. So he was really excited to share that with me and wanted me to watch it. I'd never seen it before. And I was watching it, and then I started thinking on Sunday after seeing that. And those movies I always enjoy. They're nostalgic, and it's fun for me to explain to my son. He's like, "These guys do all these movies together." I'm like, "Because they're friends. And they're talented, but they're friends, and this is what they like to do." and hopefully they can bring some enjoyment and entertainment to other people. And it's also just sometimes it just, when you watch that and you think, like, that's going to be me with all of my friends, and we'll get a chance to go to the reunions together and watch our kids grow up together, and seeing each other, maybe not all that as often as we should. But the best part about Nick is he was a guy, and I tried to articulate this to people, that Nick was the guy that was like the moving train. You could talk to him every day. You could talk to him once a year. But within 2 minutes, you're on the train and it's going. And you're having a good time. And it's the same conversation that you've had for the last 20 years, 25 years. And I'm going to miss my friend. And it's really tough to say that and to talk to our former coaches yesterday and to talk to them about this and try to talk, let your other friends and people know about all of it is hard. And then to be flying and doing this was even worse because people probably thought I was a lunatic on the plane. So it's just what was going through my head and trying to understand and realize what was going on and to process a lot of that emotionally. And the good news was I thought I had no more tears left in me by the evening, and so I could sit back and watch a football game and relax. It was great to watch the Jets get their first win.
And ran the ball well, Bob. That was like I thought about that. It wasn't lost on me that they had their best running game of the year.
They ran the ball well, and it happened in Cincinnati, which is an hour away from where Nick grew up.
Right.
And I'm like that. And to hear Aaron Glenn address it and talk about it, and he said he was never coached him, but he was in the organization when he was there, and Aaron was playing. His last year was our first year in the league. And, so knowing him and knowing what he was about. But, like, Nick was a hugger, man. He was a great guy. He's someone that always made you feel warm and welcome. And just talking to the coaches and everybody and trying to process all of that. And then last night, our friend Albert Breer reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, would you want to write a couple of paragraphs about Nick?"
Knowing you, it's not a couple of paragraphs.
Well, I was like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I was talking to my wife. I don't even know where to begin, and to try to do this justice. And I was doing that during the second half of the game last night, and just trying to. I guess what you're doing in that is everybody got a chance to see Nick from afar, and some people were privileged enough to get to meet him and knowing just his warmth and everything that he was about. And he was kind of the everyman, and to try to connect that to people and have them understand and get a taste of what you got to experience with him on a daily basis when you were around him. Like that, I think, is the goal of it. And, so the playing attributes are one thing, and you dress Nick up in this 6'4", 325-pound frame and the long hair, and the Viking beard and everything. And then you have a guy that was a hugger, that was, like a teddy bear, who was incredibly smart, quick-witted. I always, he was the bartender from Piano Man. He's quick with a joke or to light up your smoke. He was a guy that always had a conversation about anything. He was incredibly smart and so funny. And it was awesome. Just as you get older, you don't get to see people as much. But any time that I went to New York and New Jersey, I would always shoot a text out to Nick. And it was, "Hey, buddy, in town. If you're around, let's hang out." Whether that's dinner, whether that's drinks, whatever that may be. But I would love to see you. And generally, it's like, well, sometimes he had kids stuff or whatever. But generally, he was always there. And we'd go out and have a great night together. And they'd be like, "Great time, Bob. Give me a hug," and you just turn around and walk off. And That's who he was. And
So Albert reached out to you.
Jeff.
Albert reached out to you for a couple of paragraphs. And in the chat today, there's people that are expressing their condolences and their thoughts and prayers for the Mangold family and for yourself. I never met Nick Mangold. Many of us in the chat never met him either. And like our exposure to Nick Mangold is what we saw in between the lines. I'm curious if you feel a responsibility to be that go-between, to let, you're telling right now, you're talking about Nick and what a man he was and all that stuff. I got to believe, Bobby, and I'm not saying it's a burden for you, but like for a lot of the people here on the radio station, and like when you mentioned Breer and all of that, and the fans here in the chat and all these people, like you're our connection to Nick Mangold, and I appreciate your sharing these personal thoughts about him, but like I feel like that's an important role you play. I don't know if you sense it or not, if you feel it, or if it's responsibility is the wrong word, and a burden's the wrong word. But do you feel like it's probably almost a privilege for you, right?
No, I think I wouldn't call it a burden, maybe responsibility, an obligation to my friend to remember him the right way and to make sure that everybody gets, like I said, a window into what I got to experience with him. And so all I can give you is a trailer. I can't give you the whole movie. Like there's no way to do that. And so I try to give you the trailer into his existence of what he was to Ohio State, what he was to the New York Jets, why, it's funny. People wanted him to get into TV. I had friends at ESPN. They were big Jets fans. Like, you should get Nick to come up here. And Nick's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like he doesn't want to do it. Like, no. And Nick's like unrepentant about it either. He's like, I'm good. I don't care. And he was good with that. But then he would go and he had his barbecue sauce and he was doing the tailgating stuff. He would just walk around the tailgates at Jets games and like they would film it and he'd pop in. And like I don't think any of that was like pre-scripted or anything. Like, it was not manufactured. Like that's who he was. And I saw this clip by the Post, Instagram post by the New York Post today. It was like Nick Mangold in pictures. And they had a picture of his family, and they had a picture of him playing, and some stuff in college. But they had a picture of him when I think I'm trying to think what hockey game it was, but you could see him like screaming. He's sitting behind the opposing coaches and team's bench, and he's like screaming through the plexiglass, standing up, and like that was him, man. He was just he was your normal guy, and like your normal dude. And he was the everyman. A kid, he married his high school sweetheart from Kettering Alter, or Jonathan Alter. He lived in Centerville. He played football with AJ growing up. His wife, girlfriend at the time, Jenny, she goes to Ohio University. He goes to Ohio State. And, I didn't really get the full gravity of it. And I guess when you're young, you don't really understand it all. When they got married, which – their wedding, it lives in infamy in like circles, our friend circles, because we all got overserved and our wives were furious at us during it. And so we laugh. I'm like, man, well, there's pictures. I don't know that they're out there. Well, I didn't take any. This was like in 2008. So we didn't have like iPhones.
Disposable cameras. Yes.
But yeah, there's probably stuff floating around there. And like some of the bridesmaids like throwing up all over the bathroom. I mean, it was just remarkable. And Schlegs was there. His wife was mad at him. He was, he almost threw up on me. I mean, it was unreal. But they get married, and there's certain songs that make me think of Nick. And it's interesting. Faithfully by Journey is one of them, because that was the song that him and his wife danced to at their wedding. And, I never really probably listened to the words of it that closely, because we would all make fun of each other of who picked the corniest song to dance to. And really it's more your wife's picking it than you anyway. And his, like, come on, man. Like, we love Journey and Faithfully. But the more I listened to it yesterday, it made me think of Nick, just of how like they didn't go to college together. And so they were always driving back and forth. And I was part of some of those drives because a lot of my friends went to Ohio University, and I'd go down there with them, and we'd hang out. And, he'd go see his wife or girlfriend, and I'd go hang out with my buddies, meet up at a bar. We'd drive back together for Halloweens and different things. And just, that was always it. And listening to the lyrics of it yesterday, I was like, that was his college. And that was his college with his wife. And there are 4 children now together, and some of the trouble that we got into together. And I don't know, there's probably statute of limitations on this. And it's funny. People would always ask.
Don't vacate wins. Don't vacate wins.
There's no win vacation going on. But, there was one time we went down to Ohio University, and we went down for Halloween. And I don't know if Nick had never been down there before, but I went in high school because we were in Lancaster. So a lot of people would go down, see your friends, and hang out. And then I knew, like, traffic getting out of Athens after Halloween is like Ohio State game day, immediately post-traffic, like post-game. And so I would always get up and, like, dude, I'm out of there by 10 because we would have meetings the next day. And I remember I'm like, hey, Nick, dude, I'm getting out of here. Like, you ready to go? He's like, I'm good, bro. Jenny and I are going to hang out a little bit. I'm like, we got to be back by like 2 or something or 1. He's like, no, we're going to get brunch and then get out of there. I remember getting there. Like, I pull in, whatever, I work out. And AJ's like, where's Nick? I'm like, he said he was going to hang out with Jenny. She was going to drive him back, and it was going to be good. And I remember sitting there and, like, we're getting close to the start of the meeting. No Nick. And I'm like, oh, gosh. And I was like, hey, Bowles. He's like, Alicia, Nick called. We talked. There's a lot of traffic. There's some wrecks. And I was like, damn it, Nick, I told you to get out of here. But he wanted to hang out with his girlfriend, who later became his wife. And sitting there, like, people were looking. And we were, I think, we were old enough that we were starting. So at least sophomores, maybe juniors. And I think we were sophomores. Yeah, we wouldn't have been juniors. Actually, we were juniors, I think, at this time. The previous year, there was something else that happened. But, him being late to that meeting because he wanted to spend some time, and, like, Tress not happy, and him having to, like, get up and run and do some different stuff and things like that. But that was – it was him. I'm like, I'm good, buddy. I'm like, all right, Nick. Like, I'm going to – that was my friend warning right now, telling you this might not be a good idea. But, you're going to do what you want to do, and you're a grown man. But just being a part of those, and the way that it worked out with those two, and then him going to New York, getting drafted there, having Brett Favre, he had, who was their quarterback at first, from Marshall Pennington, and then they ended up bringing in Favre, and then ironically with I was texting Sanchez yesterday, and I'm like. Because I remember, like, when they drafted Nick, I was up in New York that first year. I was like, hey, let's go out. And he goes, you care if I bring Mark? I'm like, no, dude, bring him. And Mark and his brother come out, and, like, we have a great time, a lot of fun. And I'm thinking, like, yeah. And I remember when he had Favre, I was like, well, he left from AJ, went to you, and now, and I guess Favre had a hard time taking snaps from him at first. And so they fumbled a lot of snaps, and guys told us that Eric Mangini was their head coach, put together a montage of them fumbling all the snaps, and then underlaid it to Hit Me Baby One More Time by Britney Spears. And it's them, like, fumbling snaps and then having to run around the field, like all of this during training camp. And, I'm like, dude, and it was surreal because we grew up watching Brett. And then now to see Nick, who was a 7-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro, who, I made the joke last week with him about this. I was like, Nick, well, if you don't get a kidney, you'll get in the Hall of Fame because once you die, you're way better than you ever were when you played. And, like, that was meant to be like, don't go dying on me, buddy.
Sure.
Like, and then, jeez, he beats, man. It's too much.
Well,
he's a great player and a great guy. And he's someone that I don't know anybody who didn't like Nick. He may not have been your favorite person, but he's an impossible guy not to like.
Honestly, Bob, we hadn't talked before the show today. I didn't know if you'd be here or not, and I wouldn't have blamed you 1 minute at all if you would have said I'm not doing the show today.
No.
But I know you got you told me to shut up last time I said this about you, but I know that the listeners and I appreciate your vulnerability and your openness and your transparency and all this. I know this is not easy for you, but the people in the chat, the listeners, it's been and I'm sure you've seen them. You haven't responded, and I don't expect you to respond. I'm saying there's a montage of messages on here with people.
Yeah,
I know.
I'll get into it.
You don't. I want to know. So yeah, you obviously you're seeing those, but there is such an outpouring of affection for Nick, for Nick's family, for you, and I can't imagine what it felt like for you, and the fact you're even doing this now is pretty impressive, Bob. But I think you did a fantastic job of, and it's something we can talk about it anytime that you want to talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about it with Schlegs tomorrow on the Schlegs Day. I'm sure it'll come up again. But very sorry for your loss, Bob, and thank you for giving all of us a peek into what kind of person Nick Mangold was.
The best. And I don't know, just texted some of the people over at the Woody Hayes on, that morning. I mean, Hartline and James played with him, and Devin Joy, we were on the same team together. And how, just so they knew, and they could inform the team. I mean, he's a big part of Ohio State. I don't know if they'll do something for him on Saturday. I haven't talked to Ross about that, a moment of silence or whatever, but that'll be tough. That'll be really hard to see that. There's not too many times I've cried in that stadium, but that'll happen. Just knowing that this Saturday will be all of that, and a guy who meant so much to this university and so many people and touched so many people in a positive way.
I don't know what the hell to do now, Bob. I will say this. I just put this in the chat, or about to put it in the chat about this send. But I want you to know, look, and because people talk about the, Buckeye Nation, Buckeye fans, and all that, and the fact that I never met Nick. I see how you're reacting to it. It's affecting me. It's affecting the listeners. People who never met Nick. Goes to show you the power of what Ohio State means to people. The fact that this is somebody who nobody in this chat, I don't think, maybe a few, but no one's met him. And the fact we are all affected by this way, even before you started talking, we were all affected by it, goes to speak about the passion and the way we all connect together as Buckeye fans. We aren't players. And we're still on the other side of the glass, and we're sitting here still having these reactions, Bob. Says a lot about the power of Ohio State and Ohio State football.
It does. And the reach that it has, and the passion behind it, the reach that's there and the passion. And I also think this, one of the things that it makes and embodies Ohio State and makes it as awesome as it is the fans are one side of this, the students, the alumni, everybody that loves Ohio State. And the other side of that is the players. And Nick's ability, and not just Nick, but I think we have great young men at Ohio State now. I think we've had great young men at Ohio State for a long time. And a lot of that is the function of the coaches who recruit and develop those young men. But allowing them to be as connected and understanding that they can reach out and how they connect with people and connect with Buckeye Nation and reach through that medium that is there to help make those relationships thicker and fuller. And that's why, there are people that would go up to Nick and have a conversation with him. That's why he'd walk around the tailgate. He'd talk to anybody. And that's also what gives it that is there's all these people that have their own stories about him, and they've got their stories about a number of players. And that's what has made the connectivity so strong is there's a desire for people on one side of it to be a part of it and to be a fan of it, and the desire for the people on the other side to reach out and connect and to make sure that the support is appreciated and that it humanizes everything. And there's the relationship that goes back and forth. And that's one of the things that I find wholly unique about Ohio State. And one of the things that Nick was the best at. We go to Vegas in 2004. Nick's birthday, AJ's birthday is January 6th. Known insurrectionist, AJ Hawk. Everybody knows about that. And that was a big deal for him. Well, Nick's birthday is literally 1 week later. It's January 13th. So our junior year, after we all turned 21, Nick was the last one of us. We decided we're going to go to Vegas for a weekend. Maybe we went like Thursday to Sunday, sometime in January. Like it was, I'll tell you this, it was like right after Nick's birthday, because it was the week that all of us would have had to decide if we wanted to put our names in early for the NFL draft. And so, I think I was the only one that like actually had an actual thought about that. No one else was even thinking that was the case. But we don't have any money. Dude, I brought like $600 there, hoping that I would leave with more. I left with none, and I was like worried about how I was going to eat for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because that was like some of my money that I brought it all just in case, and then I ended up losing it all just in case, and I had to like go home to get food from my parents' house to be able to eat for like the next 2 weeks. But so we're and by the way, like we're at these clubs, like we don't have any money, we can't get in there, and there's one bar we're going to get into. I forget where it was. We're standing in line like everybody else. Like we're nobody special, except we're big dudes with long hair. And Charles Bentley comes walking by, and he was like, "Hey, Buckeyes," like whatever. He's like, "Come on." Like we start talking. He's like, "Come on with me." And so he's like, goes to the front line. He goes, "Listen, don't be pulling out your Buckeye ID. That ain't going to get you up to the top." He's like, "That ain't doing anything for you here," like jokingly. So he takes us out, and we hang out, and he bought his drinks, and we hung out that night. So that was one night. And then the next night, because everybody else was just hanging out, Nick and I were like, "Hey, let's go do something fun." And then so the next night, I think, we go to some other place. And we get in, we wait in line, get in there, and do drinks in Vegas. I mean, we're in college. You're used to spending like $1 on a beer.
If that.
They're $10.
Right.
Yeah, they're like $10. I'm like, my goodness. I mean, I know we drank a lot before we came here to make sure that we were in a good place financially and hydration-wise. But then we waited in line, burned all that off. So we're getting in there. I'm like, man, these drinks are expensive. And like Nick had kind of disappeared. And I'm like walking around, and then I see him, and he's on the other side of a velvet rope in the cabanas. And I was like, hey, he's like, "Hey, Bob, come over here." And he's like, "Why don't you meet my friend?" And he's like, "Hey, this is the guy I was telling." He starts talking, and I was like, "Hey, who are these people, Nick?" And he's like, "Oh, this these guys play Major League Baseball for wherever." And they're like, they're done. Like, "And how did you start?" He's like, "I just started talking to them. Next thing you know, we got to talk my way in here. And next thing you know, we're pouring drinks out of their cooler right there in the middle." And I was like, "This is great. How did you finagle this?" Somehow you talked your way back in there, talked to these guys. And next thing you know, there's like 8 seats in there, and we're occupying 2 of them. And like 2 of their buddies are standing up. Like it was unreal. But he just had a way with people and an ability to connect and go up to anybody and just start talking to them, find some commonality because he was so smart, and relate to them. And next thing you know, they're like best friends. And Nick's feeling so emboldened that he can even ask him for favors. Like it's truly amazing.
That's an amazing trait, Bob. Like that underrated trait
It is
being able to do something like that. Like it'll endear you to
especially
people
when you don't have any money.
Even in Vegas, nonetheless. Like in Vegas, everyone's a showman, but to be able to stand out that way and do that in Vegas is even more impressive. But the fact, if you could do that in life, that it'll open doors for you that won't be open for anybody else.
It was a superpower, man. Yeah. It was like that's what you go talk to guys, and we play people and like guys that play with the Jets, and I'd always ask him, "Oh, my boy Nick, like Nick's the best," like, and you'd have conversations. They start telling you their stories about him and just how great it was and everything, and that was the best part of him.
Rivers Middle Half says your Nick voice has him laughing. I guess I don't remember hearing much of Nick's voice now that I'm thinking about it.
It's funny because we always used to say that Jim Bowman had kind of like a a British. He kind of talked like Sean Connery, and he's like, "Hey, Bob, like, how you doing?" It had kind of like a deeper, but there was a British, like almost a British accent to it. And then Nick, we kind of absorbed some of that. He's like, "Hey, it's the big guy," and like coming on up, and he always give you a hug. But that was just him. I don't know. It's probably a terrible impersonation, but it's all I got.
That's okay. You got to work on your Corso, too, because I know that we've got the, like I say, Kathy in the chat wanted you to work on that one as well.